The World Championship qualifiers are completed, and this KC Cup, because it still is a KC Cup, was a weird one. I'm making this video before the official results because we know the 4 best decks. This wasn't really the most diverse KC Cup. And also, I did make a count of top 100 slots a few hours before the event concluded. So, plus I've seen people play, so I have an idea of which decks were the best of the best, which were good, and my opinion slash wishlist predictions on how to address them. Damn, that's new. Starting with skills. I think this comes as a surprise to no one. Raging Pendulum was the star of this KC Cup. It's just a synchron skill, but it's not a +4, it's a +3. But it compensates for that by having 0 restrictions. This is beyond stupid in my opinion. This needs to have restrictions. Like, pure odd eyes is fine. I mean that. It's not that degen of a deck. I mean, actually it is a degen deck still, but it's not that good of a deck. But when you realize that, oh, we just need 2 cards to be scales and the other 2 cards can be anything we want, it's then when it's going wild. Odd Eyes Orcast was the best way to play Odd Eyes. It was extremely degenerate. Its turn-on boards were almost impossible to break for many decks. You basically needed 5-card combos to do so. So yeah, this just needs a restriction, an actual restriction. Like, the previous skill just gives you 2 skills and restricts your main deck. This should be the same, even harsher in my opinion. Or restrict the extra deck to like only extra deck monsters that are like pendulums and Xyz monsters with odd dice in their name. Some people have told me that. I don't know how they're gonna word this so that it can work. Just give it a restriction. That's my wish list, and I believe they are gonna do it. In the Synchron deck, they just nerfed 4 cards, but you cannot do this now because you can play any card you want in this deck. So what? You're just gonna nerf every card in the game? Next skill is Seal Tombs. I'm gonna be honest, I sorta liked that we had a generic skill being that good. The problem is, Seal Tombs is not the healthiest skill we have seen in Duel Links. I mean, 3 years ago this had no restriction and it completely dominated the format. It was called Seal Tombs format for a reason. But I think this skill makes the Orcast Mirror on the one hand interesting because it promotes the hand trap build, which I find the hand trap mirror really fun. But I also think it makes you unable to play back row in Orcast mirrors, because if you get Cosmic Cyclone you're just gonna lose the game. Also, it's very good against other decks, and I don't think that you should be able to activate Cosmic Cyclone turn 1 on your own card so that you can use a Floodgate on your opponent. Especially if they're playing the mirror, they are playing Speed Rage also. That just sounds crazy to me. But I think that the nerf of increasing the life points you need to be lower than your opponent would be okay. Like Drossen's low level, 1500 life points lower should be okay. Like No Mortal can resist is at 2000, and I think that No Mortal is a bit more broken, even if Seal Tombs can just be used going first. The next skill, oh boy, I am gonna be honest, I think this skill is broken. It is extremely broken, it helps the deck a lot, but I've seen people comparing it to the Galaxy skill. It's not like the Galaxy skill at all, because the Galaxy skill just made the deck to be extremely one-dimensional, whereas the skill, the Clearwing skill, makes the deck have way more combos, and makes it much better going second at helping to figure out lines to play around stuff, which I think is good. I like when skills increase the ability. I like when skills increase plays, the viable plays, because they make players think, and that's a good thing. But it's still too powerful. It's the best way to hit the deck. People have said limit 1 Piper. I don't think that's the call. And I just think that it gives you free advantage. So mitigate that advantage and make them discard a card, like the Galaxy skill, for example. Discard the card for the second effect. Like if you wanna summon the dice from your deck, return a card from your hand to the deck, something like that. Or if you want to use actually that's the first effect. If you want to use the Speed Tuner effect, make them return a card from their hand to the deck. That's it. I just don't like when skills give free advantage. So I think this is like the best nerf we can do to speed rates. The next one is rockets. Rockets were good. They weren't as crazy as I think some people imagine them to be. They still performed like a tier 1.5 deck. They were the 4th best in terms of representation. Odd Eyes, Orcast and Speedroid saw more representation and they were better. But still, Boron Launch I think is an interesting skill. It got buffed and made the deck good. I think that's okay. I don't have such an issue with rockets. I like these decks. I like tech decks. I think we need decks that play tech cards, because playing tech cards means that most of the times you need to know when to use them. There are some exceptions though. But yeah, the skill is basically your Striker Dragon. It also gives you the Link 2. It reminds me of the Speed Rate skill, because it gives you a card and it sends a card from your deck, from another dimension basically, to your graveyard. But it does it post turn 4. I still think, however, that the dangerous part is a bit stupid, because if we reach turn 4, Rocket gets this extremely huge push, and it makes it almost impossible for it to lose games like that. So I would just remove the dangerous part from the skill. I think that the field spell coming for free is okay, because you have to control a rocket monster. It's not like the hero skill, for example. So if it's not Tracer and you book the first monster, they don't get the field spell, for example. Or if you Cosmic Cyclone it, Cosmic Cyclone compulsory it, you know what I mean. But yeah, the dangerous part is I think where it gets a bit wild, because it just makes the deck able to play around disruption so much in grind game situations. I guess that it makes border load easier, and like that's what Konami wants the deck to do, but I still think it's too strong. Also, Rocket doesn't need it to kill. It already can put up a lot of damage in the early game and in the grind game without it. Some honorable mentions, because these weren't the most popular skills. They were played though. Guardian Call for the Orcast combo without your normal summon, also used in Onomat Orcast in those 30 card piles, being able to make a stupid turn on board. 3 effects used in some Orcast builds and in Trickstars. Trickstars being a decent meta call, unironically. Some people played Trickstars. And Switcheroo being another skill Orcust could use. I don't think these skills are the problems. I despise 3 effects, because I think that if you're playing this, you're just wanna go first all the time, pretty much. Unless you're playing Trickstars. But in general, I dislike skills that boost turn 1s a lot, and 3 effects is exactly that skill. It just makes your deck better turn 1. And you're just basically gambling if you're playing Orcust, for example. If you're using 3 effects, you're gambling if you're gonna go first or second. If you go first, you're okay. If you go second, however, the skill is useless. But yeah, I don't think this should be nerfed. I think that the cards in these decks are the issue. And since I said that, let's move on to the card ban list. We're starting with a pretty obvious one. And I know that Odd Eyes Orcast, most of them played Bubble, yet some people did play Mermaid, like Sunrisanti, I think. But the card is crazy. 2 monsters is what? Full Orcast combo, yes. I never thought we would see this in Duel Links. Konami did try to prevent it, but in pure builds it turns out that Mermaid is better than Bubble, because consistency is better than power. Bubble is a crazy card, don't get me wrong, but Mermaid proved to be even crazier for the pure builds. I think that this card has to go. 2 monsters being able to get you a draw 2 combo plus a protection, or even the disrupt with release, since people played that. I don't know, I'm not the biggest fan of it. It's also a card that's in the card trader, so I believe they will ban it. I understand people saying, oh, they can limit Nightmare to 1, and yeah, that also does it, but I think that we need to address the problem itself. Nightmare Mermaid, go to 0, that's it. Limited 1 cards, you already know what I'm gonna talk about this. I mean, I don't think this is a wishlist element. I think this can happen. They hit Ibli to 3, wanting her to not be viable with Orcast, since they sorta did their testing. But she's still being played. The people play Ibli in hand trap build because they play 2 mind control, 1 Ibli. You can Ibli lock if you also have open Nightmare or Harp, because you can discard that with Mermaid and summon Ibli from deck. You just need to play 2 Link 2s. And Ibli is a floodgate, and floodgates are unfun to play against. Also, she is extremely degenerate in Duel Links because we have skills that lock you into playing, for example, only Synchro monsters, like the Speed Rate skill, which is a good thing. These decks, it's a good thing to have these restrictions, but when you introduce a card that just says, oh, you cannot special summon to them, it's a bit stupid. Also, yeah, having to play an out to your extra deck, I don't think is the end of the world. It's still annoying, so yeah, this card, I would like for it to be banned, but that's extremely wishlist material, so limited to 1, I think it's realistic, it can happen. Konami, please do it. The next one, you can see the first sentence. I had like a very harsh argument with some people for this card because I don't think it's that broken. Whereas they told me that it's extremely toxic. I think it's toxic if you pair it with skills like Destiny Draw, like Draw Sense, something. It's being playable after a while, because yeah, it's good in the Orcast mirror if you're playing the Handra build. It's also good even if you play back rows, because it's not the most easy to counter card, yet it doesn't stop your opponent from doing stuff, from building their board. Which is why I think it's not such a problem anymore. However, I understand that it's one of these cards that Konami dislikes, and they limited to 3 and to 1 cards like Spear Cretin and the 3-Eye Dice. For that reason, and these cards are trash, so you could limit to 1 the only good battle hand trap we have, actually. I mean, that and Veil, but okay, I still think Veil isn't that good. The next one, it's a wishlist thing, unfortunately, but I think this must happen. Beatrice was a mistake. I've said that since the day the card released, but it's just now that people realize that it's not a mistake because of Burning Abyss. Even if she made that deck meta, she's a mistake in general because she's generic. You can send anything from your deck twice. So she's a combo extender. She's a disruption. And you don't, I mean, you're gonna be like, but you have to play the Garnets for that. Well, you don't care. You can discard them for Pendulum Call, for Onomatopoeia. Like, okay, sure. And even if you like book her for the disruption, she can still chain and send Kytroid, for example, to ensure survival. It just has very few counterplay. It's extremely powerful. And in a world where Croco Dragon is at 1, I'm not even a fan of Secrets, but I just think it's ridiculous Croco is at 1 instead of gutting the stupid skill. I think Beatrice should also be limited to 1. She's an insane card. I would like if she wasn't in the game, but that cannot happen. But do not worry, Burning Abyss fans. I will compensate moving forward. I know that limiting Beatrice to 1 is a murder for your deck, so don't worry, I am gonna circumvent that. Spoiler alert. And the next Xyz monster on the ban list that I have limited to 1 is Evil Swarm Nightmare. This unfortunately is wishlist material, but the card is stupid with free zones in the game. Because, you know, I would normally be okay if you played a disruptive card and it had you to think when to use it. Evil Swarm Nightmare is a floodgate. You need to have 0 brain cells to use this card, because you're gonna lock 2 of the 3 zones and your opponent basically needs a tech to get over it. The card is beyond stupid, and I would like to see it get limited to 1 or even banned, but it's not gonna get banned. But yeah, it's a floodgate with 3 zones. It's pretty much like World Legacy Secret, the Mech Knight trap, where you basically got full zone locked, and the Mech Knight player had to never think because every card was getting negated. So this was for the limited 1 cards. Moving on to the limited 3 section of the ban list. We need to nerf forecast cards somehow, because it's a deck that gets carried by its decks. And so it's a limit 3 deck. Mind Control is stupid in Orcast. IDP is also a crazy good card, especially in this format. And yeah. So there are combinations of limited 3s you can make. I think these 2 are the best. Scrap Recycler is the best starter, since we don't even have Mermaid now. So you can limit Scrap to 3 alongside with Return. You're making the deck lose a Scrap and lose the second Return, which, I mean, some people were playing 1, but the optimal I think was 2. There are many more combinations that address this also, like Scrap with Harp. Harp with the Return actually doesn't. Scrap with something else. I just think that Scrap going to 3 is the best idea, and then you pair it with something so that you also lose consistency and you also lose something relevant, like a copy of Return, and the limited 3 cards. And the final limit 3 I have is Rocket Tracer. Rocket is also a deck that is what I call a limited to 3 deck, and limiting a card to 3 would impact it a lot. For example, Mech Knights were not a limited 3 deck, despite the fact that they played limited 3 cards. They used the limited 3 cards because they could ensure survival and then they could play on turn 3, but they didn't need them in many situations. They weren't a deck that played with text that much. They were basically a deck that you had to address it through its engine. Rockets have a strong engine, but I think that you address them by removing some of the best decks they can play. They can use Needle, and I have heard the argument of limiting Needle to 3, but I think that is stupid. I think Needle Ceiling is a card that punishes overextension basically, and I think that decks can play around it. I understand that it has insane synergy with Rockets, I understand that it has been relevant for a lot of formats, but I just think in general, most people who complain about Needle are people who play degenerate decks in the first place, and people who play speed rage. So yeah, these two. So we limit Tracer to 3, it's the best monster in the deck, so you're gonna play 3 Tracer, you're not gonna play 2 Tracer and limit 3, that is stupid. You want to see Tracer, it's by far the best card in your deck alongside Quick Launch. This could also be Quick Launch, by the way. Both of them, I think, cut the job, make the job. Moving on to the Unlimits, this is not gonna be a prediction part. I'm just gonna say which cards are okay to return. The first card, as I said, Tour Guide. Beatrice is now to 1, so yeah, let's give them Tour Guide, let's help them a bit. They're not gonna be able to have that second Beatrice now, so they cannot even lose Tour Guide, like, come on. Trishula, okay, we only have 1, nobody's gonna hand loop anyone. Spear Cretin, okay. Mirror Force, card's awful. Revival Gift and Bamboo Scrap. Link Summoning is a thing, I'm just gonna make Nightmare Phoenix, thank you. Extremely situational also, even if I'm playing a skill deck, I don't care. These are extremely situational cards and they are awful. Restructure Revolution, I think it's like a card that burns, but I don't think it's good. If there's something with it I don't know, please tell me. Massive Morph, card is awful. Ritual Beast Tamer, which I think is the most controversial in here. I cannot speak. Ritual Beasts got win now. They did nothing. Give them back the final Elder, like, come on, what are they gonna do? It's not like the deck is that problematic that it needs to have 1 less copy of Elder. And the final is Dark Arm Dragon. No, this will not break Thunder Dragons Konami, it will not even break Element Sabers, even if all of the Element Saber deck is free, except Cocytus. So yeah, that's overall for my banlist prediction / wishlist. I unfortunately am pessimistic because I don't think many of the things I say here will happen, but let's wait and see. Konami is extremely unpredictable with ban lists. So that's for today. Have a nice day, everybody.